Okay, so picture this. You're a hiring manager, right? You finally got a quiet moment to look at applications for that senior role you're desperate to fill.
The one.
The one.
Yeah.
You open the first PDF, it's a resume. You scan the dates, 2019 to 2020, junior associate, 2020 to 21, mid-level manager, 2021 to 2022, freelance consultant. You see where this is going?
Oh, yeah. 4 jobs in 4 years. The hopscotch board.
Precisely. And for most of us, I mean, the visceral reaction is almost allergic. You look at that and you just think,
Whitey.
flighty, unfocused, expensive to train, gone in 6 months. It's the dreaded hopscotch CV.
It really is. It's seen as the ultimate resume red flag. The assumption is always that something is wrong with the candidate. You know, they lack grit or get bored, or maybe they're just impossible to work with.
But, and this is why I was so excited to dig into today's sources, what if that instinct is just completely backwards?
Yeah.
What if that red flag is actually a signal of incredible value?
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into a manifesto from the Faroohz blog by a woman named Farah Majali Rawashta. It's titled The Corporate Grasshopper. And I have to warn you, if you're an old-school HR director, this might spike your blood pressure just a little bit.
It is definitely a provocation. Farah isn't, just apologizing for the hopping. She is arguing that this rapid movement is a massive competitive advantage.
She's claiming the Grasshopper might be the smartest hire you can make.
Exactly.
And before we dismiss this as just, I don't know, the ramblings of a restless Gen Z intern, we should probably clarify her background.
Yeah, that's crucial context.
Farah has 13 years of experience. 13. Across multiple sectors. She's been in the trenches.
Which is so important. She's not theorizing from a textbook. She's reporting from the front lines of the modern workforce. She's critiquing this whole concept of loyalty from someone who's seen how the sausage is made at like a dozen different factories.
So our mission today is to unpack this argument. We're going to look at why she believes the lifer, the person who stays in one seat for a decade, is actually at a disadvantage.
And we have to get into her zoo of corporate archetypes. It's hilarious, but also pretty stinging.
It is. And we're going to ask some hard questions about what commitment actually means in 2026.
It really challenges the fundamental contract of employment, so let's get into it.
Let's start with that central metaphor, the corporate grasshopper. Usually if I call you a grasshopper, I'm kind of implying you're frantic.
Right. Aimless. Jumping from blade of grass to blade of grass, it suggests a lack of depth.
That's the standard critique, right? Depth requires time. You have to stay somewhere to truly understand it.
But Farah reframes this entirely. She views her career history not as a series of abandoned posts, but as a database.
A database. I want to drill down on this because it sounds like a nice buzzword. But practically speaking, what is actually stored in a grasshopper's database that isn't in a lifer's?
Okay, so think about it in terms of functional variables. If you stay at one company for 10 years, let's just call it legacy core.
Sure.
You become a master of legacy core. You know their proprietary software inside and out. You know that Susan in accounting needs a specifically formatted email to approve a budget.
Uh-huh. You know the political hierarchy.
You have depth, sure, but your sample size is 1. You're fluent in a language that only one country speaks.
I like that. That's good.
Now, contrast that with the Grasshopper. In that same 10-year period, maybe they've integrated into 5 different organizations.
Yep.
So that means they have a comparative database. They haven't just used Slack. They've used Teams, Asana, Monday, and Trello. They haven't just seen one way to handle a PR crisis. They've seen how a scrappy startup handles it versus how a regulated bank handles it.
So they have this catalog of what works and what fails.
That is the key. They possess a comparative perspective.
Yeah.
A lifer might look at a broken workflow and just think, well, this is just how work is. They have no frame of reference to challenge it. The Grasshopper walks in and says, actually, I've seen this solved 3 different ways. Method A is too expensive. Method B is too slow. But method C worked perfectly at my last job. Let's do that.
That is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
You're basically hiring a consultant who creates efficiencies based on best practices from the entire market, not just your own internal history.
And it gets at the difference between experience and exposure. We tend to just lump them together.
Break that down for me.
Well, experience is usually measured in time. I have 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
But Farah asks this really uncomfortable question. Do you have 10 years of progressive growth? Or do you just have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times?
Oh, That's the lifer trap.
It is, and it's distinct from exposure. Exposure is about bandwidth. It's about the variety of environments you've navigated. A grasshopper has been through more onboarding processes, more cultural shifts, and more leadership styles in 5 years than a lifer might see in 30. They're not institutionalized.
Okay, I totally see the value in the database.
Yeah.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. As a hiring manager, I'm looking at the cost.
Of course.
It costs money to recruit. It takes months to get someone fully ramped up. Even if the grasshopper is brilliant, if they leave in 18 months, didn't I just waste a huge investment? The lifer might be less dynamic, but at least they're there.
That is the fear. That's what drives the red flag mentality. But we have to look at the cost of the alternative.
Which is?
What's the cost of stagnation? What is the cost of having a team that is so insulated they don't even realize their skills are 3 years out of date?
The cost of obsolescence.
Exactly. Farooh's argument implies that in today's economy, the stability of the lifer is a mirage. You might feel safe because they're sitting in the chair, but if they aren't evolving, they're actively pulling the company backward.
So the grasshopper might be a shorter tenure, but
Yeah.
the density of value they provide during that time might be higher.
Way higher. The injection of new ideas, the process improvements, that might outweigh the longevity of someone who is just keeping the seat warm.
This moves us perfectly into the idea of commitment. Because that's the moral weight we put on this, isn't it? We say, you need to stay to prove you're loyal. We treat employment like a marriage.
And Farooh just deconstructs that entire moral framing so effectively. She argues that we've confused commitment with corporate endurance.
Corporate endurance. It sounds like a terrible reality TV show where you just see who can sit in a cubicle the longest without screaming.
It does feel like that sometimes, doesn't it? But think about the implication. If endurance is the metric, then the goal is just survival. It's just outlasting the person next to you.
So what's her alternative?
She proposes a different metric. She says, my commitment is to the work, not to a toxic environment.
Commitment to the work. That's a huge shift. It separates the craft from the building.
It defines professional integrity in a totally different way. If you're a high performer and you're in an environment with weak leadership or undefined goals or barriers to quality, staying is actually a betrayal of your standards.
Right. If you stay, you're basically saying, I'm okay with this mediocrity. I will sign my name to this subpar work because I want to hit my 5-year anniversary.
Yes, exactly. The grasshopper leaves because they care about the quality of the output. Farooh explicitly links her own departures to environments that hindered high-quality work.
So the red flag isn't on the candidate.
No, the red flag is the environment that couldn't support high performance.
It completely flips the script on that resume review.
Uh-huh.
Instead of asking, why did you leave so soon? The question becomes, what about that company violated your professional standards?
And, conversely, when you see a resume with a 15-year tenure at a stagnating company, you have to ask, why did you stay? Did you not notice the ship was sinking? Or did you just not care enough to jump?
Oof, that is biting. Did you not care enough to jump? It suggests staying can be an act of apathy.
Passive endurance is very often mistaken for loyalty.
Now, speaking of passive versus active, we have to talk about the animals. This is my favorite part of the reading.
The zoo.
This whole zoo of archetypes she creates to explain these dynamics. And it's not just the grasshopper.
The menagerie is fascinating. It's such a clever way to visualize the psychology of the workplace.
Let's start with the one that made me laugh and then immediately feel a little sad. The penguin.
Ah, the penguin. She writes, and I love this line, don't hire a penguin that mates for life with a bad manager.
We all know the nature documentary version. Penguins find their mate, they huddle together in the freezing cold, they survive. It's romantic. Why is it bad in the office?
Because in the wild, that bond ensures survival. In a corporation, it can ensure mutual destruction. If you mate for life with a manager who is incompetent or abusive or just checked out, you are tethered to their failure.
You're freezing on the iceberg because of a misplaced sense of duty.
It's blind loyalty. The penguin values the bond over the outcome. They won't leave a sinking ship because we're a team. But in a professional context, that inability to assess the situation rationally is a weakness.
So you're not making decisions based on performance.
No, you're making them based on emotional attachment.
And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, she gives us the kangaroo.
The kangaroo. Now, obviously, this connects to the hopping, but there's a specific detail she includes that just transforms the metaphor. She reminds us, kangaroos know how to box.
Yes, I loved that.
Yeah.
They aren't just fleeing, they have a left hook.
Right. So think about what that represents. A hopper, or a kangaroo isn't just someone who runs away when things get tough, they're fighters. The implication is that before they hopped, they boxed.
They fought for the budget. They fought for the better strategy.
Exactly. They entered the ring, they pushed back against the bad policy, they tried to fix the broken culture. The kangaroo is an agent of change, but, and this is the key, if they realize the fight is rigged, or the opponent refuses to engage, they hop.
That completely changes the narrative of the quitter.
Mhm.
Usually we think the person who leaves is the one who couldn't hack it.
But Farah is suggesting the kangaroo is the one who tried to hack it the hardest. They put on the gloves. They only left when they realized the match was a waste of time.
It reclaims their agency.
It does. The penguin waits to freeze. The kangaroo fights and then moves to better grazing grounds.
She also briefly mentions the chameleon and the octopus.
The shapeshifters. The chameleon is about rapid adaptation blending into new cultures instantly. If you change jobs every 18 months, you get incredibly good at reading the room.
You have to be. You don't have the luxury of a 6-month learning curve.
And the octopus suggests multitasking, handling 8 different threads because you've seen so many different types of operational chaos.
So when you combine these, the database of the grasshopper, the fight of the kangaroo, the adaptability of the chameleon, you're not looking at a flaky employee. You're looking at a survivalist.
You're looking at someone built for the modern economy. And that brings us to the industry where this is most critical. Farah specifically highlights marketing.
Right. And I feel like this applies to tech, media, anything fast-paced. But why is marketing her specific battleground for this argument?
Because the half-life of a skill in marketing is incredibly short.
The half-life of a skill. Explain that.
Well, think about the tools and strategies that dominated marketing in, say, 2019. The specific SEO tactics, the social media algorithms, the ad platforms.
Okay.
If you were an expert in 2019, you haven't radically updated your database since then, you're not just stable, you are obsolete.
So if a lifer has been sitting in a company that uses legacy marketing for the last 7 years, their expertise is actually a liability.
Precisely. The job description of marketing is novelty. It is to be new, to cut through the noise. Stagnation is antithetical to the profession.
So a hopper in marketing is forced to stay on the bleeding edge.
They have to. Every time they interview for a new job, they have to prove they know the current tools. They're constantly auditing their own skills.
Whereas the lifer can just coast on how we've always done it.
Until how we've always done it stops working and the company collapses.
Yeah.
The hopper brings that cross-pollination. They are the bees of the corporate world if we want to add another animal to the zoo.
Ah, right. They take pollen ideas, tools, strategies from one flower and bring it to the next.
That's the greatest hits collection you talked about. I know how to use this AI tool because my company in 2023 used it. I know how to run a guerrilla campaign because my startup in 2024 did it.
It creates a kind of like a superorganism of skills. If you hire a team of lifers, you have a very deep, very narrow pool of knowledge.
But if you hire a team of hoppers, you have the aggregate wisdom of 50 different companies sitting in one room.
Which begs the question, if these people are so valuable, if they are this superorganism, why are companies so bad at keeping them?
That is the ultimate pivot of the manifesto. It stops analyzing the employee and turns the mirror back on the employer.
Right. We spend so much time dissecting the resume. Why did you leave? What's wrong with you? That we forget to ask the other side.
Farah argues that if you want retention, you have to create an environment worth staying for. It sounds so simple, but it requires a fundamental shift in power dynamics. She uses a phrase that I think should be on the wall of every HR office.
What is it?
We are humans forming partnerships, not animals in a zoo.
Not animals in a zoo. That goes right back to the penguin. The zoo animal is kept, it's fed, it's given shelter, it stays where it's told. It's a dependency model.
Exactly. The employer holds the keys. The employee should be grateful for the cage. But Farah is describing a transaction between equals. I have this skill set, this database, you have this mission, let's partner.
And like any business partnership, if one side stops delivering,
the partnership is dissolved. It's not personal. It's not a moral failing. If the leadership is weak, if the promises of growth aren't kept, the grasshopper leaves. And here's the kicker. When they leave, it is a massive brain drain.
but they take the database with them.
They take the database, they take the agility, and they take the boxing spirit straight to your competitor.
So let's talk to the leaders listening for a second. If you have a high performer who hands in their resignation after 14 months, your reaction shouldn't be to roll your eyes and say, ugh, typical millennial can't commit.
No. Your reaction needs to be an autopsy. You need to ask, Why wasn't this environment compelling enough to keep a kangaroo? High turnover of high performers is a leadership metric, not an HR statistic.
It really reframes the whole great resignation narrative we've been hearing for years. The narrative has been people don't want to work.
And Farah is saying, no, people refuse to work for zoos. They refuse to freeze on the iceberg. They know they have options, and they are exercising them.
It's a powerful reclaiming of the career narrative. Whether you're currently looking for a job or just feeling stuck, this changes how you tell your own story. You aren't unfocused. You are building a database.
And you're refusing to settle for stagnation.
So let's recap the main takeaways from this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. First, that the hopscotch CV isn't a sign of chaos, but often a sign of a diverse, high-value database of skills. It's exposure over just experience.
Second, that commitment to a single company is often just a mask for fear or inertia. Real commitment is to the quality of the work itself, even if that means leaving, to find a place that respects it.
And finally, that the power dynamic has really shifted. Employers have to earn loyalty. You can't just demand it because you pay a salary. If you want the kangaroos to stay, you have to give them room to box.
It's empowering stuff. So I want to leave you with a final thought today. It comes straight from the source, and it's a question I want you to really sit with as you look at your own resume or your own team. Farah asks, is your loyalty actually just stagnation?
That is the uncomfortable question.
It is. Are you staying because you're building something or because you're afraid to hop? Take a hard look at your career path. Are you a penguin freezing on the ice, or are you a kangaroo ready to fight for something better?
And remember, the kangaroo is the one moving forward.
It's exactly. Something to think about as you go about your week. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Keep hopping.